Hey, how's it going, everyone? Trying to put in the quality over here. The sim, the sim. What am I trying to say? This is Hexel, by the way. Hexel Colorado joined me for from Humanity, Texas. But I'm trying to add the cinematic, little pieces to the show here. So that's
High
what that was.
production value.
Yes, the high production value. And so I'm excited about having Hexel here today because we are talking about the Basic Income March coming up
Yeah,
next weekend. We're
this
talking about
Saturday.
Humanity Forward Texas, which this is the man for that. And then we're, talking about everything going on. Um, so starting off, Hexel, who are you, Hexel? Who are you? And what do you do? And give me a little bit of background.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure seeing you. I think people who are very familiar with American Jobs Factory um, know that we go way back, and I always enjoyed the chances that we've had to interact with each other in person during the campaign before the pandemic. But like Daniel said, my name's Hexel Colorado. Colorado is my name, not where I'm from. I am from the great state of Texas, born and raised here in DFW, and currently, my day job is as a software developer at a small tech startup. But what I'm very passionate about is working and fighting for universal basic income with Humanity for Texas, formerly known as the Yang Gang, or formerly known as DFW for Yang. We have now expanded to cover in the whole state of Texas. So we have people involved from Austin, San Antonio, Houston, all the way in Palestine, Texas, in rural East Texas, and we're just a group of people who are just really passionate about continuing the movement and the mission that Andrew Yang started in his presidential campaign, and so we've had a lot of successes in Humanity Forward. I feel very grateful to be a part of it. So my role in it is as the president of Humanity Forward Texas. Um, we started this back in, I think, semi-formally. I mean, we introduced the idea to everybody that we were doing this back in February 29th, just before the lockdown started. We had this big celebration dinner, and we just made this big announcement that, like, look, DFW for Yang, the Yang Gang, is now carrying the torch and keeping the movement alive. And so I'm very happy, very blessed to be a part of this. We've got a lot of great people, great volunteers. I was busy today going back and forth and texting with people. And we just got, hit our first goal for the registrants for a Basic Income March. So I'm excited. I'm in a great place. This is a great organization. And I'm just really happy to be here.
Okay, awesome. But did we cover who you are, Hexel? Who are
Oh,
you?
who am I?
Who are you? Background.
Well, so
You're a techie. You're you should be on the Nerds for Yang, is what I'm feeling
yeah,
after
so
this.
like I mentioned, I work at a tech startup based here in Dallas. So I do software development for a living. My ethnic background is my parents are both Filipino, and so before the Yang Gang, I was heavily involved in the Filipino American community in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. Kind of participating and volunteering and organizing fundraisers and community events and festivals. And I've lived in Dallas or this area all my life, and so I have, in addition to,
You're like native Texan with a Colorado name. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So what's funny is a small, like, tiny anecdote is that we were through, driving through to El Paso on our way to San Diego. So big long road trip. And naturally, we had to make a stop in the tiny town of Colorado City. So we stopped in
Yeah,
Colorado
that's
City.
in Nevada, right?
No, here in Texas. There's a
Oh, it
Colorado,
is?
Texas.
There's a
Yep,
Colorado City in Texas?
yep, there is.
Oh, okay.
Now there's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot there. I don't even remember. I think there was maybe one cute little antique store that we stopped in. We were trying to
Did you
find
get a picture of yourself under the sign or something?
Yeah, we did. We tried
Okay.
to find the welcome to Colorado City. We took a picture in front of it, but there's not really a whole lot going on there.
Gotcha.
I'm sure there's nice people. There was a lovely couple, elderly couple who was kind of running the antique store there, and they had some really interesting paintings. But yeah, we mainly stopped in there just for the namesake.
Cool. So, I was gonna tell you. I was thinking the other day. Do you ever watch The Rising with Crystal and Sagar? I can't think of his.
Yeah, on the hill.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking how you look like Sagar's little brother.
I got that brown skin, that
Yeah, and the glasses. Yeah,
yeah,
and and he's only 28. So I was like, hey, he's almost as young as Hexel. I think.
Yeah,
Really.
we're very similar age. We're both in our 20s, and so
Yeah,
both obviously, engaged in politics to some degree.
yeah.
I think his personal leanings are, I think probably more conservative.
Well, he's the conservative wing of that show, but however conservative that is, whatever. But anyway, I just thought that I was like, wait a minute, he kind of reminds me of Hexel.
Well, maybe one of these days, if I'm ever on the hill, Rising with Crystal and Sagar, maybe we can look back at this conversation and say, we're kindred spirit in a way.
So, I guess the next kind of questions are, what is Humanity Forward Texas? I guess you kind of covered what they're doing and what it does, right? So, what got you started with it? I mean, kind of go back to the beginnings of, Humanity Forward Texas. And what do you think that Humanity Forward Texas needs to create more awareness?
Right. So Humanity Forward Texas, in a nutshell, is the spiritual successor of the Yang Gang in Texas, right? And so everyone who's involved in Humanity Forward Texas are people who believe in universal basic income, who believe in democracy reform one way or another, who believe that everybody, every person, every human deserves an economic floor that they won't fall through. And they believe in creating an economy that's human-centered and that works for us and not against us. And so these basic principles are the same basic principles from the Yang campaign. And we wanted to carry that torch after the campaign suspended because, these policies and these ideas are real. They've caught fire. And they've even caught fire with people who maybe did not support Yang for president, but they believed in the ideas and they believed in the policies. And so, there's, I think this year, 2020, especially with everything that's been going on with the pandemic, has really brought to light, the reality of what we've been talking about for over a year and a half, almost 2 years. And so everybody, there's so many people. I always think about how, during the campaign, a lot of people, there's, multiple campaigns, 20 people running for president. And every time a candidate drops out, they usually ask, okay, which candidate do we support next, right? That's usually what happens with most people who drop out. But when the Yang campaign, the Yang presidential campaign came to a halt or came to an end, everybody was asking not who do we support, but what do we do, right? And even like in the evening hours of the campaign, everybody had been talking about creating something that lasts beyond the campaign, similar to what maybe people who supported Sanders or maybe in people who supported Obama back in 2008, they all created something, a legacy that extended beyond a single campaign. And so everybody's really excited to do that. Day one after the campaign suspended, I was getting phone calls and text messages saying, all right, so when are we putting this together? And we had many dinners and meetings talking about what Humanity Forward Texas would look like. And then now here we are. And so we've had a number of successes under our belt. We've literally changed the official state party platform. And we're now about to put on our first major event for the year as Humanity Forward Texas. And so it's a really exciting time.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about this weekend, of course, for the Basic Income March. It's going to be it's like a car march. So I
It's
guess
the
it's not
car
marching,
parade.
it's rolling in your vehicle. But what I mean, do you think things like this is what really will bring awareness to Humane Texas forward, or do you have other ideas in the future?
Well, this is just one piece of the larger puzzle, right? But it's very important to recognize why events like this are important. Something I'm very honest about is, if when we when we get in our cars, when we parade around downtown, and we might have some walkers who will be holding signs along the roadway, on the sidewalk. And when we go out there, I'm not naive about the fact that marching and parading aren't advanced policy discussions, right? And
Right.
so if you had people who did not already know or understand universal basic income before this Saturday, this march probably might not change the minds of complete strangers, a complete
Right.
new people. But that being said, this does accomplish something extremely valuable, which is that demonstrating that the support, the grassroots, the people are here. We're real. We're ready to put in the work. We're not going anywhere. We were never bound to a single campaign. And so it's important for our community, our state, and our country to see that we are here. That is a very important statement to make. And by showing that we are here and that Humanity for Texas is leading the charge on universal basic income, then people who, it went from like barely anyone knowing what universal basic income was to now everybody at least knowing, the vast majority of one of the major political parties supporting it. All these people now who like it, who would support it if they were given the opportunity. After this parade, we make a very clear statement that says, hey, if you out there support universal basic income, we are here. And we prove that we're here because we put on this big event and we all showed up and we did all the legwork of the logistics of planning a parade. And so this is a demonstration that we are here, we are fighting, and if you want to join us, then you can be a part of this movement. That's the value of this parade.
I'm just answering the doubters of universal basic income over here in the chat. Um, so
I know there's
now,
another chat. I would, if you want to throw a question at me, I'm happy to.
well, it's the basic stuff that we dealt with in the campaign. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of companies that don't pay any, pay zero in taxes. We always talk about Amazon, and they pay zero in taxes, but not only them, Netflix, some of the, top 10, you know, billion-dollar companies don't pay any taxes. And so even if, obviously with our data, if we got the money that basically they're stealing from us with our data, we could pay for UBI. It's those kind of things. And of course, Alaska is not a socialist state of the union because they're very Republican in Alaska, and they've had a UBI program for almost 30 or 40 years now. I don't know. So it's the same kind of idea that we don't deserve the money that we're generating as people. I talked to a guy in Alaska who actually put the dividend for Alaskans together, and he said that if we just took the natural resources that big oil companies are siphoning to their companies, if we took a little tax from that, we'd have plenty of money for a UBI and a whole bunch of other things. But the problem is that there's lobbyists that keep that oil money going to the companies rather than the people. So anyway, that's another aspect that we have more than enough natural resources that could pay for a UBI too. So there's so many different ways that a UBI could be paid for if we had the intention to do it. And
Yeah,
I know
and
you
I'll
just agree with me, but
Yeah,
go
and
on.
I want to add to the last thing you said that there's many ways. You know, during the campaign, we put a lot of emphasis on one specific plan, which is the freedom dividend, right? So the freedom dividend was a specific outline of this is how much you get, this is who gets it, this is how it's funded, right? A very specific plan, a very specific, procedure. Now, this March is about universal basic income. And to your point, when we talk about universal basic income, there's actually many ways to approach this, right? There's many funding mechanisms, there's many caveats. I had the great opportunity to be on a podcast with the creator of the UBI calculator. Um, there's a guy who goes by the name of the UBI guy. His Twitter handle is at the UBI guy. And he created ubicalculator.com. And what's beautiful about ubicalculator.com is not only does it show you how different UBI plans would affect different households, whether you're at the poverty line, middle income, like $60,000 to $90,000 a year, or even if you made $200,000 a year, you put in these different household incomes, and it'll show you how UBI affects you. And it also shows you how different plans affect you, not just the freedom dividend, but also plans and funding mechanisms proposed by other thought leaders in the space. And so the key thing to understand with universal basic income is that, there's multiple ways to go about it. Some of them work, some of them don't work. But the key thing to understand is when we support universal basic income, we are supporting the fundamental philosophy that it's not right that in the richest country on earth, people, veterans, mothers, families are struggling to get by. And that in a situation like what we have now, when every other country is giving some monthly recovery package every month to their citizens, the United States, the most powerful and the richest, isn't. And so, it's this basic understanding that, we don't need to live in scarcity. If there's any country in the world that can do this, it's us. And the fact that other countries are doing this, but we aren't, even though we're the most capable, that's the part that doesn't make sense. And that's the part that this movement is changing. And so if people have questions about how do you pay for it, where does the money come from, where does the money go, my personal, go-to plan is the freedom dividend because it has a lot of those questions answered. So really a lot of those questions really depends on which plan you implement. But ultimately, those are just details that come after the basic philosophy of treating people like humans.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into, the election and what's going on there real quick. I'm sure this is going to be a hot topic, but what was your takeaway from the primaries in the process? And I'm going to kind of give you my takeaway from everything that happened because we were in the thick of it, the thick of the primaries. So go ahead and let me know what you thought about it.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of that's already been said about the political process, about the campaign process. One thing that I'll throw in there that I don't know if other people have talked about is that a lot of blame gets thrown at the media, rightfully so. A lot of blame gets thrown at the DNC, for choosing their person, and a lot of that is fair. One of the biggest things that I came to realize is that the primaries, are not really competed for in the election year or even the year before. It's pretty much the primaries won by who can build a relationship with the national population years in advance. And so the biggest reason why we have Joe Biden is because Joe Biden, love him or hate him or tolerate him or whatever you feel about him, he's had a relationship with the American people for the last 4 years and really the last 30 years, right? And again, not opining.
And we can say Trump had a relationship with the American people for years before.
Exactly. And so, and I'm not going to, I don't want to opine too much on like whether this is right or whether this is wrong, but just stating it for how it is. one big example I look at is like the Bernie Sanders campaign, right? And I talked to so many quote unquote establishment Democrats,
Right.
right? Who, what was their main reason for not supporting Bernie Sanders? It's like, well, it's because, think what you will about quote unquote establishment Democrats, but these guys pour their blood, sweat, and tears into pushing policies, advocating for people, doing activist action, pushing resolutions, pushing legislation, lobbying. They do the blood, sweat, and tears every year, right? Not just election year, all 4 years, every midterm, every level of office. And when someone like Bernie Sanders comes along with amazing and beautiful ideas that everybody supports, but he's only really active or relevant around election time, because what happens when election's over, even as recently as this year, in the last few months, when Bernie goes back on TV, goes back on C-SPAN, what's next to his name? It's not a D, it's an I. And for a lot of people like myself, before I got involved in this primary process, I was like, wear your eye with pride, right? And I think there's still a lot of pride in being independent. But what that tangibly means, what that practically means, is that you're not, or at least from the party's perspective, Bernie wasn't building that relationship for the 4 years after 2016 and leading up to 2020 with the party. Now, that's not to say he wasn't building relationships. He was building great relationships with the Hispanic community, the Black community, minorities, grassroots, right? Labor, labor unions, labor organizations. So he was definitely building strong and powerful. And we saw the result of that in the early primaries states, right? But the key element,
He didn't make the relationships with the establishment to get into the
he didn't
establishment.
establish a relationship with the establishment, and he didn't, to a greater effect, he didn't establish a relationship with the larger population, not just, for example, the urban centers. I mean, yeah, so so that's in a nutshell, at least my perspective on it, is that if you want to win elections, you have to go where the victory is. And I think Sanders' work is not a wash. I think if you're looking for people who will attend your BLM march or attend your UBI march or attend, your grassroots events and grassroots activities and direct action, the Bernie crowd's a great crowd. They have a great infrastructure for that. But when it comes to winning elections, this last primary showed us that you do have to play the game if you want to change the game. You have to win the game to change the game. In order to win the game, you have to play the game. And part of playing the game is courting the establishment and courting the larger population.
Well, so I like how Trump frames Bernie as the radical left. And it's hilarious how they try to put Joe as like he's, in the radical left of Bernie and AOC. And the only policy I think might be considered kind of radical, which I think is ridiculous, is a job guarantee. Because, I mean, I see individual companies or NGOs or nonprofits trying to move towards that direction to have some job guarantees, but we don't want the government to be in that game. That's just a horrible policy. But to have everybody have health care, when it's every other major country has health care, and we pay 2 times more than any other country, I don't think that's that radical, that policy. And that was the main thing that he was running on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can draw a Venn diagram about radical ideas, good ideas. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes they don't. On behalf of, jobs guarantee, especially in the wake of UBI and Yang, I'm on the fence. I'm on the side of what a lot of people say is job guarantee only works if you have something like UBI, because what makes job guarantee not work is you creating a situation where now people they depend on working on the government, right? Versus if you had UBI, then people have options other than working for the government, and so the job guarantee is really more of a we hold your life in our hands, but more, if you want to work, we have options for you.
Right.
So, and that could be a very nuanced conversation, just like UBI. It kind of comes down to the details of how it's implemented. But I generally speaking, guaranteed job or federal jobs guarantee. I used to support. I mean, before I got like super involved with the Yang campaign, I used to support the federal jobs guarantee and the Green New Deal in spirit.
Right.
I mean, since there was no bill to scrutinize, so it's like, you could only support things in spirit. And so, absent of UBI being on the table, then I was like, well, what other options for upward mobility do people have? And right now, the only vessel for upward mobility was work. And so if a lot on the left and the right, everybody's talking about get people jobs.
Yeah, well, that's why I created my organization, because I thought the focus should be jobs, and because everybody can agree we need more jobs and we need less unemployment. So
right. And so, yeah, so like before UBI was a feasible option, which thanks to Andrew Yang, now it is a feasible option. And, it's politically a feasible option. I would say it's always been a feasible option, but politically it's feasible. Then, now we can, kind of look at the broader spectrum of solutions. And I think UBI is right there at the top.
Yeah. So this guy was asking if we're Joe fans, and I don't think anybody is a Joe fan. I met
I'm
very
not
few
a Joe fan per se.
I've met very few on the trail Joe fans. There was they had like a 5-person crowd.
I will say they exist, though. I will say they exist. And it definitely comes down to who you hang out with. But I went to, for example, in a twist of irony, the exact same venue that we hosted Andrew Yang in Dallas was the exact same venue that Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Beto O'Rourke, all of these candidates who dropped out, Amy Klobuchar, they all did this super rally in the exact same venue in downtown Dallas. And so I already voted in the primary. Like I voted Yang in the primary because I didn't work all those months to not vote for Yang, right? I'm not going to write him in November, but I already voted. So I figured I'd just check it out, see the other side of the coin that I did not see on the campaign trail. And there's definitely, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of airtime.
Well, after the primaries were over, there was much more vigor for Joe. But during the primaries, there was not a big momentum crowd for Joe. I don't feel, because I would see, live shots of the after parties and things like that, and it was pretty dead and people leaving early. But I think the best statement for Joe is good enough. That Joe is good enough to be president compared to Trump. So, I mean, I find that pretty, accurate at this point. So, I mean,
I will say this to the person asking if we were Joe fans. I'm not a Joe fan. I'm a solutions fan, right? And getting things done fan. And ultimately, I don't vote for Joe because of Joe. I vote for Joe because of what I want to accomplish, and what I want to see through. And so it's a matter of me taking destiny into my own hands and saying, this is where I am. This is what I want, where I want to be. How do I get there? And someone on Twitter did a very apt analogy of a bus, choosing which bus to get on to get to where you want to go. Right. You have people like Trump who are a bus going in the wrong direction. You have people like Bernie and Yang and these more if you believe in more progressive agendas, there's these great buses that take you exactly where you want to go. They drop you right on the front door of where you're trying to go. But maybe the bus is out of fuel, maybe the bus is under maintenance, maybe the bus is under construction. So even though the route is correct, the bus simply will not go for a variety of other reasons. And then there's the bus that takes you almost there, or maybe even takes you half the way there. It doesn't take you all the way there, but it gets you much closer than any of the other options. And then once you get off the bus where it leaves you, you can get on another bus, or you can take a scooter, or maybe while, before you get on the bus, you put in more fuel, and then now the bus can take you all the way where you want to go. So the bus that works and it's going in the right direction, that's Biden, right? And maybe he'll take some turns and you have to like coerce him back. But that's the gamut that we have to choose from.
Well, I was honestly looking to vote third party at this point, and then personally came to the realization, like, I supported Yang all this time, and if he has any clout for running an awesome campaign and says, hey, vote for Joe is the right thing to do, I might as well take his word for it, because he knows what he's talking about. Right. And I fought so hard for him. So maybe, he built up some kind of clout with me through all that time and effort that I should listen to him. That's kind of how I was feeling.
Yeah, and this is also the same dynamic that I was talking about at the beginning of the show, which is that, if you want to win elections and if you want to win the game, you have to play the game, right? Yeah. And part of the playing the game is making friends with the people. This might sound shady or like yucky to say, but you have to play with the winners, right? And I think that's what Yang is doing right now, is that he realizes point A, point B. How do we get there? In order to get there, these are the people who we need to cooperate with us, who we need to get on our side, who we need to believe in us rather than be against us. And so that people is the Democratic Party as it is now. And then when Yang wins the game one way or another, and we get things like UBI, ranked choice voting, congressional term limits, right, publicly funded elections. When we get that whole package of things that we get by winning the game, then you get to change the game. And then you get to say, all right, now we have the incentive structure and the infrastructure to have third parties, fourth parties, and then even some more advanced stuff like multi-representative districts. You can get really fun and really innovative and progressive with how you shape our democracy after you win the game. But to win the game, play the game.
The point is to move forward.
Yes.
Humanity forward. Okay. So just generally breakdown of what you think of American Jobs Factory, my organization, because I'm always looking for feedback. It's a work in progress. I feel like it's a 20-year project that I'm still at the beginning of. And what do you think of what I'm talking about, that this organization addresses, the job growth and creating jobs for the future that does not destroy us? So any suggestions?
Where do I start?
Because really what I feel like I'm in the process of creating legitimacy for the organization, and anything going towards that is what I'm working on right now. So I'm working on an explainer video. I'm working on more podcasts. I'm working on, just kind of like media points, things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I could kind of say some general things.
Sure.
I would say business.
Let me have it, Axel. I know.
My wheelhouse. I think just starting from what is my wheelhouse, you might want to go on Fiverr and kind of invest in a good web designer.
Yeah.
Your website. Let me ask you this: do you have a mission?
Kay was going to help me with that, but she kind of spit it out. So.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of work. Yeah, so understandable. But do you have a mission and a vision statement?
Yes, I do.
So could you recite it for me?
So the mission is to create jobs for the future that don't destroy us, and the vision is to do that by first of all, I have a unique system to create jobs and place people in work that is meaningful, and also going to take over companies that are doing the wrong thing and compete in the marketplace. That's the vision.
Okay. And do you have and so I'm kind of asking questions that come from like this software product development angle. So do you have a like something of a proof of concept, like a mini project or a case study to show this is how it works, this is the results, and this is how we can recreate it?
So I guess I gotta say no on that, because I just have I have a 10-page what's it called when you like put all the ideas down, like a proof of, it's kind of like a proof of study, like explanation document, huh?
Like a feasibility study kind of thing?
Yeah. So I have that, but there's no really proof of concept, because I'm still working on creating some businesses right now. And then once the businesses are growing, I'm putting the workforce aspect into that type of that system into the businesses.
Gotcha. I don't have an MBA. I'm not a business administrator. So everything I can give you is from a background of my experience in politics, or my relatively new experience in politics, but perhaps I think my deeper experience with software. So if you think of yourself, and I am a co-owner of the company that I'm working with, and so I have a stake in the business development side, or the biz dev. But I think if there is any one thing I can offer that combines my politics and my professional career, is work on building that proof of concept, and that / case study, right? Because I'll try to tie this into the politics side, because that's, I think, what our viewers are more interested in. UBI has had many case studies and proofs of concept, right? I mean, the mayors for guaranteed income, right? They're trying to establish more proofs of concepts in their cities, right? And so if you can create the proof of concept, and not in emphasis on proof, right? Not just the concept, because the concept can be written down and theorized, but then the proof is that like initial seed project that you do to prove that your concept works. And so if you can get that proof of concept,
do you think I could pitch like the seed project for funding in that way?
I am not a a venture capitalist. I don't know what they will say yes to or no to.
So my whole focus is just building the other side of it, which is the business side, and so that I can plug the nonprofit side, or that concept into it. So the business side is a work in progress. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I understand.
I mean, I'll give another example, and to kind of tie it into politics or policy again. So we did a Zoom workshop on the topic of ranked choice voting. And by the way, I have about 10 to 15 more minutes. So
yeah, we're almost at the end of the agenda. So
okay, good. All right, so we had a workshop on ranked choice voting and how we can make it happen in Texas, right? And so we advertised it, we kind of promoted it. And one of the things that came up as we were promoting ranked choice voting was a lot of people started messaging us about other alternatives to ranked choice voting. Like, hey, have you heard of STAR? Have you heard of approval? Have you heard of, I think STAR and approval were the two biggest ones, right? And there's a lot of people who are like actually against ranked choice voting, because they were like, well, if we're going to take all this time to, change the way we run our elections, why settle for less than the best, right? Why not go straight to something like STAR or approval that like has these mathematical theories proving or demonstrating that they would work? And I took a look at a lot of this stuff, and there's definitely a lot of weight to what some of these people are saying in terms of the math. But the big difference is that unlike these STAR and approval, which have come about in the last decade or two, ranked choice voting goes way back, like 100 years. And there's, on the country level, on the state level, at the city level, at the municipal level, it's been tried, tested, and proven. So there's many case studies and proof of concepts to show that its time has come, right? And a lot of these other forms, even though they theoretically work better in concept, haven't gone through the ringer of being tried at different levels of government yet. And so I think these things will come, right? The day will come for a star and the day will come for approval, but you got to trust the process. And approval, the ranked choice voting has gone through the process because it has many, many proofs of the concept. And because of those proofs, its time has come. Others don't have the proofs, time hasn't come yet. So I think drawing an analogy to your business, when you have the proof, when you have that pudding and there's proof inside of it, then things will happen for you. Your time will come.
Okay. Sounds legitimate. Thanks for the feedback. So tell us, to kind of wrap it up, where people can connect to Humanity Forward and to you to help the cause.
Yeah. So first of all, humanityforwardtexas.org. You go to the volunteer page, put all your information in, and someone will be reaching out to you very soon. That's the number one thing. Number two thing is the very immediate future. Basic Income March 2020,
which is global too. So if you don't have it in your city, you can register to start one in your city this Saturday.
I mean, it is cutting it close if you do start a new one, but you can do that. Like if
you're a small town and you're gathering your 5 friends, do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a street corner protest. You can do a demonstration, if you will. You can do an art project. Like you don't have to do a big march / car parade, right? So we're Dallas. We like to go big in Texas. So we're doing a car parade. And so a few things you should know. Number one, go online and register. All right, help us kick up that. If you go to our website, you click the register link on the event page, fill that out. Tell us you're coming, and we'll be there. I have some incentives for you. I just finished making. You can see my button maker. In fact, my room is kind of a mess because we have these button supplies. We just finished making our special edition, limited edition, Basic Income March, Dallas, Texas buttons. I don't know if it's focusing.
Yeah, we can see it pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can only get this if you're one of the first 50 people to register. It should be easy for you to find a registration link. It's right there you go to our website, you click events, you find the event, and you click the register link, right? Register, you will get this button when you show up, right? You have to register. And if you volunteer, again, go to our website, look at our blog, and click how to support. Anybody who helps us with volunteering on the day or in preparation with outreach and promotion will get this very limited edition. Boom, right there. So this is our Basic Income March 2020 Dallas special edition. It's kind of shiny. It's kind of hard to show in the light.
So why does it have the Roman numeral 4?
That is an excellent question. So that is actually not a 4.
Okay.
That's your math / computer science.
Oh, is it
what
less than or equal? Is that what it is?
Opposite, the other direction.
Oh, greater than or equal?
Yeah, there you go. It's greater than or equal.
Okay.
Because universal basic income will give us a floor through which we will not go under. So we're either going to be there or above. Raises the floor, greater than or equal. So this is the official logo of the Basic Income March.
Oh, okay, cool.
Given by Income Movement. And as you can see, this is the beautiful skyline of Dallas. We've got the Large Marge, we've got the Pegasus, we've got the Reunion Town, and all that beautiful stuff. This is only for people who volunteer and help us put this together, either by helping us do outreach before the event or help us with event day coordination, like there, because like traffic control or, something. So
it's the big button game.
Yeah.
Big button game.
So
come on, get in on it.
Limited edition. There's no other way to get this. You can't even pay me for it. So if you want to help and get one of these buttons, go to our website, contact me. I'm the organizer for the Dallas event, and you'll get one of these sexy buttons.
Okay.
Right there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Hexel, for coming on today to talk everything for Humanity Forward and the Basic Income March. And these awesome lights were donated by Hexel too.
Oh
That's
yeah,
why
yeah.
I
You
look
look
I look
very
so good
dapper.
on camera right
He's
now.
well lit. Like he's
Yeah.
got his. You look like you have a studio for one of these high production value TV shows
Working on it.
happening in people's homes.
Well, thank you, everyone, and join us again. We'll have more people on, concentrating on the nonprofit world. Like Humanity Forward is nonprofit, um, Humanity Forward Texas nonprofit. So join us and let's work on a future we all can believe in. Have a great night, everyone. Take care.
All right, take care, everyone.